home turf map as well into Oregon. Let's take a look at the bans, as there'll be no surprises to start things off. At least XSET gonna throw Ying right out of the map, as obviously she's still too useful, specifically for basement attacks, but we see some use come out for her on a few of the other sites as well. Habana obviously can make quick use or quick dispatchment of the hatches, so a little bit too easy there. They'll try to trick things up a little bit by getting rid of her, and then they get one more choice for the defense. More than likely a zombie will be one of the two, but we'll hold our breath for a moment. Soniqs will not pick into her. They'll go for Valkyrie instead.
Could see a mirror ban here as well. Probably XSET flirting back and forth with what exactly they want to get rid of. Let's see what it's going to be. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves before we see it, and it's going to be the Wamai instead. So that means the zombie's going to be open. You more than likely won't see her that much downstairs, but you'll definitely see her when it comes to the kids' dorms defense. Her setup is immaculate. There's so many different little crossfires and stuff that you can implement with those Kiba barriers and make it super difficult to just try and fend off a lot of the defenders' angles. So we'll see what they try and do with that later on, as we will be starting down in the basement. And once again, as we've been talking about here for a little while, XSET are going to be starting off on defense, and obviously that's the preferable side when it comes to Oregon. But I will say this, there's kind of a caveat to that. We have started to see teams kind of get on the teeter-totter when it comes to Oregon as well, and things can sometimes start leaning towards the offender side. So we will just keep our minds open and see what happens through these first couple of rounds.
All right, well, let's take a peek here at Soniqs' opening engagement. We'll see that over the next 2 minutes or so, as obviously XSET still need to set themselves up. Not really many surprises when it comes to the basement setup. Pretty straightforward here in terms of how they're going to be approaching it. A few variations in the form of Yaga, of course, going over to the Warden. That'll just allow for a bit more active contestation against any type of execute or stair play. And aside from that, Gomez has been given a little bit of freedom too, so he'll be hopping onto the alibi, so a bit more of an aggressive tendency. Probably going to swing out at some point in this round from him, but where exactly that'll show up, we'll have to wait and see. More than likely could end up over here on the small tower side of the map, playing around the free zone security rooms, and that looks to be the exact play that at least is being set up right now by XSET.
I love the idea from the Soniqs here, really putting their noggin forward for this first round and seeing what they can do with this lineup. They're going to have the Nook come in, and if you guys didn't know, Nook's secondary gadget is actually hard breach, so you don't always have to bring those frag grenades. And that's going to work out really well with this because they don't have to lean on having the Ying. They can just bring the Nook instead, and having that secondary hard breach is going to allow them to open these hatches if anything goes wrong with Yeti. Big thing for Soniqs right now, though, is that they have to worry about the presence that XSET is holding across the map, and more specifically Yaga inside of small tower at the current moment. He's not going to have any utility to really support this. It's more or less just going to be a death situation for him. Going to be able to pick up Rex, and he creeps into the window. Just a dry peek onto that. They're really not trying to be forceful with Yaga's position, and because of that, they've given over to their twitch.
Yaga still up and ready to fend off more challengers here, as Rexon now falls with not really a whole lot to exchange out from it due to how early on in the round this player was knocked out. Kansan will still be able to clear things out upstairs without too much of a problem, so we won't find much resistance there from XSET. Speaking of which, XSET has pulled back most of their aggressive setups, with Yaga being the one glaring exception, obviously. The rest of the team has no reason to really challenge things out at this point, given they already have the 5v4 advantage, so they're sitting nice and safely tucked away downstairs near the site.
Now, this shouldn't be too difficult for the Soniqs to work through. They have all of the means to be able to get these hatches open and at least start making attempts to gather some control downstairs. For the Soniqs, though, it doesn't look like they want to start working their way towards something like meeting. Instead, they're setting themselves up for the cross for construction as well as the back tower stairs. Kansan's going to adjust himself in there with Yeti as he's going to continue to hold on to this angle. XSET more than likely will be able to lean on to their info, or rather utility game here, as they do have a lot of smoke still in the back pocket of Kino, and nitro cells abound for most of the XSET roster. So as long as they don't give up the man advantage, this is more than likely XSET starting off on the right foot. Kansan's going to apply some concussions and just see if there's an ADS, and it'll impact the panel here, the soft panel, the right-hand side of E-Box. It's going to open up a rotation, but they won't be allowed to use it just yet. As smokes continue to pour into construction, they're going to continue to add to this pile and actually get some shots off. Nothing really working out for that shotgun there. As Grixer, well, actually Keynote rather, is going to re-challenge, and now the Soniqs with some very big kills, a lot coming from Kansan. The LMG getting so much done, awaiting the repeat here from the Freezer player. It's Yaga on a singular sliver of HP. 3, and he'll take down Kansan with the immediate refrag coming from Grixer. Super's going to go for the plant here, and Nitro out, and is actually going to get 2. That might be the round. Diaz just has to await the arrival of Yeti. He'll swing the pre-fire from Diaz as he'll clutch up for XSET. It looked like they're around the whole dang time, but after that frag grenade pours in off of the XSET member trying to re-challenge Elbow, I mean, it blows the top of the entire site. The Soniqs make such a quick reaction, some beautiful kills going in there in the dying moments, but ultimately XSET able to clutch up by keeping that Nitro cell alive.
Such a promising round for XSET too. You had mentioned it here. The execute, despite the fact that they started down from a 4v5, was nearly flawless, only losing 1 trade across the entire process of them getting up to their plant. But that's where the fatal mistake was made, as Stokes just mentioned, stacking a bit too closely together there and not being able to count out the Nitro cell. Allows for Soniqs to lose out the round and for XSET to give themselves a very nice clutch coming in from Diaz to set themselves up with the first round instead. They take the edge here at 1-0 and move right along to their upstairs hold.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example of showing how much timing can affect you when it comes down to those dying moments. Yaga starting off inside a small tower and soaking up so much of that clock early made things super difficult for Soniqs, even though they got so many bodies initially on their execution. Still with such little time, that Nitro cell is able to pick up 2, and there's only 5 seconds left on the clock. If they deal with Yaga in a convincing way early on and a little bit with a quicker pace, then they more than likely have a handful of time to actually be able to clutch that up properly. So it's very unfortunate for the Soniqs that they weren't able to really get the timer working in their favor, but obviously that first round is going to be a little difficult as they really don't know what XSET's overall game plan was just yet, but this one already starting to pay off swimmingly as Keno's going to go down. I don't know if they know that they have achieved this, but either way, Rexon's going to take a little damage, be able to dock himself back up just a little bit. It's going to help out his teammates as well.
Kansas drone, I believe, is underneath Keno right now, so is not going to spot his down corpse. Might have actually seen him crawling across, though, but again, the problem is it was a little bit of a lucky strike from the Soniqs and just a bad timing play from Keno, so they are ultimately going to be able to get him back up. Obviously, with a much lessened health pool here, down to only 20 now to play out the rest of the round with. But XSET resumes normal play as they manage to get their 5th back up and into the fight, but the Soniqs become kind of hyper-aware of this now. They're going to leave Yeti on big window more than likely to try to counter out any aggressive swings while the rest of the team begins the process of clearing out the downstairs setup.
Really love this position here from Spirits. We've started to see this time and time again when it comes to the Dorm's defense. Slap a mute inside of security. Have them play for the window and the door with the M590 and see if you can pick up any kills as they swing in and try and clear you out. It forces the Soniqs into a decision, but the decision is already working on the other end of things as Rexon takes down Keno with a frag, and they'll pick up yet another from the gun. The Soniqs, they're battling back in round 2 and looking to equalize.
Still trying to use the big window, it seems, as the main access points. They'll be held up on that for some time as Spirit's position has yet to have been compromised. The good news is the support he's been receiving is quickly diminishing, and in much reality, this is really the main part of the setup for the defense that's left standing still, as Gomez is going to try to make a nice forward play, but Kansan reads directly into it and is instead able to counter him out. One frag is going to get wasted here by Kansan as he just uses it to blow up the laser gate, so that'll be taken care of for the next 30 seconds. Diaz, though, is ready for the forward play from Rexon himself here, as he's able to get the trade against Diaz, take him down, and open up a plant opportunity now for the Soniqs roster as they flood their way in, leaving only Spirits alive here with a 1vx put before him, and not a very realistic one. At that, the Soniqs get very quick revenge here on the second round and equalize the game at 1-1.
Extremely well done from the Soniqs. I love how they manage the security player as well, because you have 2 options with that. You either throw everything at that player and hope you kill them whilst also maintaining hopefully some of your utility in the process so you can try and use it on the site players, or you completely circumnavigate them, don't use the big window, and hold onto the door and force them into one of potentially the worst situations you can be in Rainbow Six Siege, which is having the entire, well, practically the entire roster try and kill you through vertical, power, and then also have somebody holding your door so you can't leave. So it's just a really bad circumstance there for Spirits. There's really not much more he could do in that situation. I'd say he played that situation out pretty perfectly. It was really just the remaining setup that fell down around him as the Soniqs took full control of the site and made his life miserable inside of security.
So as the Soniqs look to surge forward, I will say that the large majority of play we've seen from them has looked incredibly promising. They just outright shut down XSET inside of this half. So it's really up to XSET right now to change up their own pacing. Yeah, it's 1-1, but we have to remember how that one got on the board for them out of a very impressive clutch from Diaz there, and a very well-placed Nitro cell at that. The overall round, though, was still a little bit drastic for XSET. So they're going to need to show us some serious improvements here as they go for the upstairs kids defense. Again, obviously the zombie coming into play for Diaz this time as well. Already going to start blocking out some trickier angles to allow him to play. Looks like on the inside of Billiards there to fend off any type of white stairs push this time.
Bomb located by
Oh,
attacker.
Kino, not again. Poor guy gets tagged up from the double window, just running back and forth. I mean, he's not going to get down this time, so we'll be able to make it out with a little bit of extra HP, but, I mean, past that, definitely not a situation that you're looking to have yet again. Yaga's going to try and get aggressive here towards the main door. Nitro cell out. Not going to land on anything, though. That's going to be the first 40 seconds gone here. But Soniqs mostly focusing on their info game and seeing what the setup looks like, as they'll be reinserting for the top floor here. So want to make sure to clear everything out. They know Yaga's been playing some very cheeky spaces recently. Just trying to check those corners, dot those I's, cross those T's. And for the Soniqs, looks like they've already got quite a bit of the heavy lifting done here. They've been able to recognize that this setup looks extremely similar to what it was the last time, and they're more than likely aware that there's going to be a player again inside of security. Let's see what the Soniqs try and do with this information, though.
So the Soniqs still taking things very slowly, prioritizing drone intel over most other parts of the game right now here. Kansan going to be able to creep up to the area surrounding Spirits, but not obviously going to be able to deal with it directly just as of yet. We'll need a bit more time to build up team strength to be able to do so. And more importantly, we need to get some hard breach onto that to be able to potentially access him, but would be very bold to use them considering the site still sits upstairs, so we'll need to either work around him as they did in the last round or find some other method to deal with the upstairs presence. Nades are out and they deal massive damage, just deleting Gomez entirely. Kino as well from earlier, still left at about 50% of his health pool. Kansan tries to go for a second one. That one's going to be way off the mark, however, so only that first kill will be found from the utility.
This is getting quite worrisome, especially with how the Soniqs are able to deliver on that last round. If they can circumvent the downstairs player again, this is looking like a quick SQ2-1. Spirits inside of security, they desperately need him as Rexon's gonna burst in towards games. He'll take down Yogg, and it's one single player on site. Kano's dead, and deja vu for round 3 as Super takes down Spirits. That's a perfect round. You sip your water, you beautiful man. What a big brain on the IGL as they dismantle XSET on the top floor.
See, my point from the beginning of the round still stands here. Most assets inside of the round, or most aspects, I should say, of the round are falling fairly handily under the control of the Soniqs. A little bit of delay there in the middle of that execute, trying to figure out how to work around the setup on the inside of security, but they just did that with drones. Prioritized the drone intel over everything else, was able to use the kind of landmines from down below and their frag grenades to knock out a few players from up top, or in a worst case, push them into a kind of awkward corner to play out the rest of the round from, and then follow it through with a very smooth execute. That's been the way this has been going for the last 3 rounds. Obviously, yeah, a little bit of a slip up there on the first round, but otherwise, Soniqs have been looking fantastic so far in this game.
Yeah, I think the big part to that, though, is that on that top floor, XSET really doesn't have a way to try and get ahead of the Soniqs early unless they just win out one of the gunfights that the Soniqs gives them. When it came to the previous round where we saw the extended hold, it's very obvious that the Soniqs are going to have to work through small tower in that situation, you know what I mean? So XSET are actually able to put an obstacle in their way. When it comes to XSET's setup for that top floor, the obstacle is supposed to be Spirits downstairs, but as we've been able to notate, it really isn't happening. Spirits can't do anything from that position. The Nitro cell isn't useful there just because Soniqs aren't planting around that dorms area, and also nobody's trying to challenge the double window. They might challenge it from outside, but they're not trying to hop or do anything, you know, substantial with that windowsill. So Spirits is just simply sitting down low and really not accomplishing anything, and they're able to take out the players on site with some nice crossfire work. Nothing too crazy, you know, get some presence downstairs, maybe nade out somebody, start to get the players up top to move and take them out. A fairly straightforward affair. So for the Soniqs, it's pretty quick 2-1 now, but now they have to try and fend off this downstairs hold as they'll be beginning things here upstairs inside of Master, at least for Kansan's sake, as they'll pick back up a drone, have some drones around for the remaining Soniqs members. You can also see Grixer off on the other side of the building, starting to get things going for meeting here too.
Kansas continuing to look for an opening entry option against one of the members on this XSET roster. Not going to be able to find it so easily, unfortunately. Spirit's able to dodge things over there towards the top exit towards Anakin. Is going to be able to work himself down the back stairs into the basement to be able to rotate around this a little bit later on in the round here. Obviously, a bit more aggression going to be coming out from players like Yaga up to the freezer stairs, but much like before, not going to lead to a heck of a lot here. Soniqs still prioritizing their drone game, are well detached from any of that defensive utility, and as such are not going to be affected by it.
The most interesting thing at the current moment is Super bringing in the Gara Hook wielding Amaru to get open these hatches instead. More than likely not going to be using the Gara Hook. This is more than likely all for the secondary utility as well as the LMG. Just a really nice set overall for the character. You know, you don't always have to use the primary utility for a character to be useful in a certain sense. So that's what Super's going for. See if he can get the plant down and try and assist his team as they've already bullied XSET back downstairs. They're trying to hold as close to the chest as they potentially can at the current moment. Kansan will impact open this deployable shield, making Freezer a little bit more difficult to play, but they still have the ADS to at least eat up one piece of throwable utility. That could potentially be fatal. Brixer's going to open up construction now as Soniqs continues to wrap around this site, but no sense of direction on which way they truly want to go just yet. Still have a lot of options open, but it's mostly leaning towards the tower take.
Yaga continuing to wait down below. More than anything, trying to knock out this drone presence being thrown at him right now, but is not able to so easily locate that. So he'll be forced back and continue to play out things from the basement position. Soniqs seem a lot less sure of themselves this time, and there's good reason behind that. XSET are ready for the challenge, and as we're going to see here from Spirits, he's able to swing out and give some great support to shutting down the two players trying to move in from construction. Ultimately, though, it's left down to Rexon alone inside of a 1v2 after he trades out two more members of the XSET roster. They're playing this hyper safe on the XSET side, not even going to take a chance on giving him an individual 1v1, so they'll hold it back. Finally, Keenan will find the strength to peek out in the bitter end of it, though, take him down and end it just before we get to the zero timer.
It's going to be 2-2 now as XSET tie things up, and if you're looking at this from an XSET perspective, I don't know if we go back upstairs. Don't think it's the best call. Instead, I think we should be going to a kitchen defense, and if it was my world that we were living in, we'd be going meeting just because Cafe never is that fun. You know, there's always a large potential that that plant goes down right under the small tower hold that you can get through that verticality, so it can get really risky to go to that side, and well, I hadn't even looked at the screen yet, John. It looks like we're going to kitchen and meeting. So really like this call from XSET. This is going to allow them to do a lot more with Oregon overall. They can play things out downstairs. They can play things upstairs. Just going to give them a lot more presence, and I think it's something that XSET has always done a really, really good job with.
Great shift here from XSET. As we saw on the first two upstairs hold, things were fairly one-sided for the Soniqs there. Nearly flawless in a lot of respects as well. Already seen improvements on the basement, so they can obviously fall back upon that in the future, but for now it has been locked away. The 2 rounds they picked up from it, and they're going to see if they can maybe negotiate a third on the first floor holds where they can control the pacing a little bit better with their extension up onto the third once again, as you're going to see Kino Diaz play into that. Diaz, of course, dropping down, but at least one more member will be roaming around there for at least this earlier portion of the round, while the Soniqs still take their initial positions.
Interested to see where Spirits uses these Kiba barriers as well. Still has 2 knives on him, so can just use those a little later on to seal up a door or something along those lines. That's the beauty of this character. You can use the 2 that you get in prep phase to help out your teammates or whatever, and then you get 3 throughout the round. So it's like, all right, do I want to seal a door? Do I want to seal an angle? Do I want to try and make myself a nice little setup in one portion of the map? There's so many different ways you can play things out with Azami. She's definitely one of the coolest characters we've had in Siege in quite some time. And past that, but still more on the cool page, the Soniqs have began their entry as they look in towards Garage. Kansan will hold the cross for meeting, getting a drone out for Armory. Stairs here. Nobody inside of Armory, so don't have to worry about the verticality, but they definitely have to worry about Trophy as Spirits will be occupying here.
Spirits continuing to wait things out in hopes that he might get a little peek at a headshot there, and unfortunately he's going to lose pretty much all of his utility the second he prepares himself for the battle due to a gun 6 coming in from down below. That'll delete both the shield as well as I think at least part of the Kiva barricade that was set up there, depending on how far the gun 6 spread for himself. Cans in the meanwhile here too. Should have no problem being able to open things up.
Oh, this is gross.
It's going to set up a very hard-to-work angle for the defense to try and play against, but we'll see if the attackers are able to get to the point they need to make this work in their favor, where they're able to put the case down on the ground.
Yeti is in full solid snake mode right now. Suppressor on the FMG9, slinking through the building, cardboard box on. Does not want to see any of these cameras. Want to make sure that they don't see him either. He's already gotten his way into shower, and he could make his way up through Z. Does have a hole inside of the door here for security, so he could hold DS's cross at least for a time, but might not really gift him anything. So we'll have to get back on board with him later on. As Spears has taken a lot of heat on this top floor. You can see the Soniqs have been able to bully him out of trophy, and now Yeti going to be able to pick up this camera, starts working his way towards the back, but they obviously know about this. Do you believe he's actually got quite a bit of his HP left? And of course he does. Soniqs all have all of their HP at the time. Except, well, actually, no, for Gomez. It was on the opposite foot this time around. Nice frag grenade from him. Quite the awkward moment at the current time is no one really going for the swing, but as soon as I say that, Yogg will come in for Cafeteria and get taken down by Yeti. The Soniqs able to get two, and now looking for the final death nail. Gonna be able to get a hold of at least Spirits. It's gonna force DS back off of security. Kino up towards Split, and he'll get taken down. What a shot from him, though, as DS will be able to claim two. The case is gonna be on Super. The plant starts going down. I don't think he's got an angle on him either, so DS is gonna have to run for stage. And how's this gonna go? Well, we'll be able to at least get one. That's gonna be a triple on the round. Kind of a weird instance there as well, as you really only thought that was the one way he could have went, but fortunately enough for the Soniqs, not the case, as he does indeed have another angle. Able to work his way through meeting. Some nice shots here, but not the death note here for DS just yet. Works his way back into meeting. The Soniqs are going to play this out extremely well. They've got the shield set up here, so even if he did get an angle, he's more than likely going to die. He's going to buzz it a couple of times, but you can see the Soniqs playing this out extremely patiently. Super with a fantastic spot. He'll creep into the corner, and I mean, really, the Soniqs just awaiting for XSET to actually swing into those angles and get taken down, and then start going for the plant. I love the strategy from the Soniqs there because it required so little heavy lifting to actually get that to work out. They put the Selmas inside a garage with Osa. Selma open the single panel, set up one of Osa's shields right inside of it, and then go for the plant. Hold your crosses for lobby as well as just meeting overall. Make sure that you're not really getting pressured too much from that meeting wall into kitchen, and it's a fairly straightforward affair. Really well done from the Soniqs.
And so things continue to look great for the Soniqs as they take control of the lead here now, moving into the final round of the half, even forcing XSET once again onto another kid's defense, because unfortunately, they don't really have an option at this point. The first floor kind of Hail Mary that they went for did not end up working out, so they had to fall back on the only other option they have now, since basement is, of course, still locked away. That's going to be upstairs, where we have seen two fairly straightforward rounds in the favor of the Soniqs. So what is XSET going to bring to bear here? What type of aggression are they going to add to the formula to throw off the game from Soniqs, or otherwise try to avoid their initial clear, which has unfortunately made the late round defense nigh impossible for XSET. Two defenses in a row.
Yeah, XSET do not have the info bank to be working around these rounds that the Soniqs are throwing at them. There's really no early intel gathering to where they can try and get in front of them, and the Soniqs are able to accomplish too much to where if XSET does try and challenge back, they're more than likely going to lose bodies for it. So some of these circumstances have been super difficult for them to fight through, but obviously that's just something that the Soniqs are doing extremely well. So one of the things that XSET is going to have to try and operate around, and you can see they're trying to do so. Yaga's going to be back over towards Armory Stairs and looking for an initial pick, but the Soniqs are aware that XSET really wants to try and fend them off early on here. So they're playing this close to the chest. They're all going to be starting over near Small Tower and using the drone game to work their way through, see if there's still a player inside of security and a couple other cheeky areas that we could see initially coming from this side of the map.
Away from that, we'll continue to see the clear from the Soniqs move fairly slowly across the map here. So they obviously need to take their time with trying to stabilize things out. We have seen, of course, a bit of a change-up with regards to where that secondary hard breach would have been coming from if they needed. That Super will now go over towards the Lions, so also giving them that EE1D pressure against the first floor hold if there is going to be one from XSET to try and lock those players down before they can waste too much time off of the clock. That would most notably be Spirits in this situation, who's currently roaming downstairs in the basement. He's actually not going to be the only one out and about right now. Drones, though, from Super, probably going to figure out at least that someone is down here. Hasn't physically seen Spirits yet, but more than likely hearing at least a few footstep cues further down the hall. Means that they still have some actionable intel to play off of.
Yeah, Sonic seeing if there's any potential for the roam to come through, and is it really going to matter at the end of the day? Well, probably not, since Spirits is dead, but Yeti's going to get one more on top of that, and XSET have been decimated early on into the round yet again here, and forcing themselves to try and clutch this up with the site players mostly. Kino's going to go hunting here inside of Trophy, and so will Diaz, but he swings from Dorms for big window, and he'll take down Yeti. No more info out of the Yana clone, but they do still have some other options to try and use here, especially the EE1Ds from Super that could put all this together and make it difficult for XSET to try and fight back unless they want to give some very considerable info game over to SQ.
SQ pretty much with everything they need has been built up here for them to be able to work their way into the site. They just need to find the confidence to make that step forward here. We're looking for 1 or 2 players to be outside of bounds too. Super with the right read here. Doesn't want to step into Gomez's POV, so runs across it instead. And is able to avoid instant death there, but still finds it a few steps later as Gomez directly challenges the breach inside of Master. Time going to start to get a little low here for the Soniqs too, and they've yet to deal with some of these setups like Diaz is on the inside of Billiards. He'll get away with 1 Rex, and so far the only one that's been able to exchange anything out. So the interior site players hold on, and XSET will be able to, after all, negotiate another round for themselves and a bit of a surprise finish to what we had expected.
Very well done from XSET there. Able to slow things down and force the Soniqs into some considerable decision-making. We see the initial challenge come up Armory Stairs from Super. I really don't like the re-challenge there. The prone on the floor was probably not the best idea, especially since your legs are in barbed wire and you're going to make a bunch of noise. But, you know, it is what it is. He was just trying to work the counter angle on the other side and make it to where XSET couldn't try and challenge from Trophy unless they want to try and step into the angle that he was occupying. So it was at least a good attempt, but just unfortunate for Super how it ended up breaking down, and for the remaining members of the Soniqs that they no longer have that counter angle working its way across the site and trying to hold up any of the rotations that XSET can make on that defensive end. It makes it to where they can play up against White as well as the Dorm's window, and from that moment on it's really easy for XSET. Just some fairly straightforward gunfights, especially with M590 inside of that close range, and that's how we end up getting to the 3-3. Really like the opener there from the Soniqs, but their failure to deliver is definitely something they're going to look back on.
So into round 7 now as the teams flip sides, and XSET have their first opportunity to make impact from said side here. We're going to see them start to work their way in, bringing, again, a pretty expected lineup to be able to deal with the setup here. Pretty big emphasis on the intel game as well, at least with the line being brought in alongside the Yanas. We'll have to see how XSET are able to properly utilize that when we get into the deeper parts of this round. Soniqs also bringing a pretty similar flair to what we saw from XSET to start things off here with what I assume is going to be the basement defense. I haven't been able to catch the site just yet, so I believe it's going to be there, and yeah, it is indeed.
Okay, well, looking at the XSET side of things at the current moment, they'll be bringing some hard breach. Have the Thermite and the Mav along for the ride, so be looking to Kino and Yogg to get these hatches open. As for the rest of them, it's a frag trio for the most part. Minus Diaz, he might not want these early engagements, at least initially, so he'll be looking to use those EE1Ds to influence a lot of XSET's engagements. They've drawn things out on this mid-floor and have seen that Soniqs have left it open and ready for the taking, so XSET will begin hightailing it into the building and start breaking up some of these hatches. Looking over towards the Sonic side of things, though, they have indeed brought a zombie along for the ride, something that we haven't seen too much of downstairs, so I'm interested to see how Yeti wants to set up these Kiba barriers.
Get a better preview of that hopefully in a few moments. XSET still trying to work their way forward. Here we go for Yeti. We'll start to see a bit of aggression built up on the Fraser swing more than anything else here, as he's been saving these for quite some time to try to utilize them. A few down inside of the laundry room as well to start challenging from there. Hatches will begin to open from the POV of XSET here, which means the execute surely can't be too far behind. Kino will start to even peek down through those ladder stairs just to make sure there's no direct challenge waiting or a flank being set up against players like Yaga, who are still working on droning out the depths of that site defense and handing over all the intel that'll be necessary for the play down through E and the back stairs. That has to show up now at some point in the next 30 seconds.
All right, Super, we were talking about how you enjoy playing these positions, these hotly contested ones where it could lead to you dying. Can he find success here now as Spirits is lined up across from him on the stairwell? Does have support from Yeti here as well. XSET, they've got to deliver soon. 40 seconds remaining here. Still have some frag grenades and everything else in between to try and influence some of these earlier engagements. And Yeti, oh, actually Super to go down. Yeti won't even make the swing. It'll be Grixer instead for the trade. And XSET, they bowled over the Sonic setup. They take down Rexen and Yeti. It's only Kansan and Grixer to get something done now. And with Grixer gone, it's only the smoke. And they know exactly where he is. It's a pre-fire from DS and a hey, how you doing with the magazine after. XSET able to take the lead off of their first offense.
XSET making mincemeat of the Sonics defense there in the basement is bad news for the Sonics camp, as a lot of folks at home are probably expecting Sonics to come in here with a solid first round to be able to retake control of this lead, given the way that some of their attacks had been going. Not going to be the case. We've got a real game on our hands here, folks. XSET have surged ahead, but how long can they keep control of that lead? As the Sonics feel that it was close enough to attempt another try on the same site. They'll head back downstairs for one more shot at this before more than likely rotating away.
See, I hate having to break things down like this for these kind of moments, but, you know, if you look how the beginning of this round goes, and by beginning of this round, I mean when the execute actually happens, not the whole, oh, let's go get hatches open for 2.5 minutes thing. So when we actually start gunfighting and things along those lines, Sonics basically missed that round by the hair on their chin. I mean, if Super makes that slight adjustment and is able to win out that initial engagement on tower stairs, then all the trades more than likely equalize out, and XSET, or rather Sonics, have a really good chance to shut down the remaining members of XSET when they go for their push finally. So it's just super unfortunate for the Sonics that the trades ended up all favoring XSET there as they went to swing, because now XSET are in a 4v2, maybe a 5v2 at that point. I do believe they got one trade. It's so easy at that moment in time. Everybody just grabs a partner and goes and tries to find these last few members of Sonics. So, you know, when it comes to those early engagements, they can mean so much to how the remaining round is going to go. So unfortunate moment there for the Sonics, but still have a lot of game left in them to be able to pull this out of the bag. And Yeti, speaking of which, he's looking to do it right now from this position in Kitchen.
Yeti with the angle, but unfortunately not lining it up correctly against some of these window players here, so not going to be able to isolate them out so early on in the round at least, but members of XSET are certainly going to be looking to hunt him down if the opportunity presents itself. Seems though Yeti ends up getting the better of the opening from this duel. Spirits will be brought down to about 50% of his HP, but the good news is they've got Gomez ready with the Finka, so that's going to be brought up to about 75 pretty quickly after the duel is taken. Yeti has fallen back, so has Rexen, and pretty much the entirety of the aggressive setup from the Sonics roster is now going to be pulled back into the basement, as they felt they've done what they needed to do in this first minute.
Yeah, Sonics aren't going to be the happiest with how long they were able to hold onto that mid floor. When you're usually trying to hold extended positions and fall back later on, you're really looking for that 1.5 minute mark. But if you can keep everybody alive, obviously that means quite a bit more when it comes down to it. You don't want the offense to be able to set up to where you just can't get back into sight in the first place. So they'll give up this top floor and allow XSET to start opening things on a pretty good timer. So we'll see what XSET can do with this 1.5 minutes that remains. Nitro Cell is going to land on deaf ears, as there's not a single person home inside of meeting after Kino gets open that meeting hatch. Still have some other hatches to deal with, but instead XSET are going to be looking to the stairwell, specifically Freezer as of right now, to see if they can start applying some pressure to the site setup of the Sonics.
Kansan ready to take the challenge outside of construction, but it doesn't seem the members of XSET are ready to give it to him just yet, so he'll be forced back. Once again, it seems like the members of Sonics have been able to rebolster themselves too and are ready for the upcoming fight. Keep in mind, they have those Kona stations, so if XSET tries to slow roll this, that's going to leave room for the Sonics to back up, play into those Kona stations, and potentially rebuffer their health for a second try at peeking out against the members of XSET. Obviously, XSET has the counter to an extent in that of the Finka to be able to surge themselves up a bit more, but they need to use that at the correct time. Whereas for the defenders, it's a bit more on demand. Rexen going to be able to go for 2 right at the start of this engagement. Him alongside Grixer will find those. Grixer will be lost in an exchange, but now as pushes are attempted to be made by the XSET roster, that's going to be shut down as well. Spirit's next to fall. Yaga low on HP. He does not have the confidence to move forward further into Laundry because of that, and Super more than ready for the challenge outside of construction. He shuts down one of the last bastions of hope here for the XSET push, and as a result, the Sonics take a traded round.
It's like we were talking about after the previous round. When the early engagements don't go your way and one team is able to trade out twofold, that downstairs setup is so very difficult to hold. hold. What happened this time? Well, the Soniqs actually are the one that get the 2 big picks instead, and XSET can no longer attack with as much firepower as they once had, and it makes it super difficult for them to clear out all of these areas that Soniqs are holding, including Boiler Door where Supra's playing it. Big 2K for them here, and well, now able to tie things up off the back of that. So finally finding some successful defensive grounds down low and looking to translate that into a hold upstairs. And they're actually going to be bringing quite a bit of denial for this. Not only in the trap kind of situation that we have going on here with Grixer and the Thorns, but also in the denial that we have with the smoke and the Goyo canisters coming in. A little bit of a change up to Goyo in recent history, no longer having the deployable shields and instead having those gas canisters that delay, forget this, 20 seconds when they are activated. Quite the amount of time, but they have to be pre-placed first and shot or exploded or lasered. Just have to have something to actually ignite it. So it's not on a button or anything like that, like Smoke's utility is, but definitely has some vicious capability.
Raw timer has started ticking down now, and XSET look to work their way in. As we see here, Blitz is going to be changing things up a bit for themselves. We can expect a bit more direct play from them this time because that has been brought into the lineup. So we'll see how exactly it works. Normally we see these used in basement setups, so I'm very curious to see how well it's going to work for the upstairs assault. And so far it's being used to just brute force their way over here towards the security setup and try to clear this out. Spirit's smart though. He's got intel from his teammates that we need to see that freezer stairs area be covered, and now he's going to be able to use this operator, brute force his way into the security setup and knock out Super's position.
Unfortunate for the Soniqs, but a fantastic play from XSET. You could even see them lining up the frag grenade to make sure that nobody challenges Spirits while he's going for that peek inside of security. So they've gotten the lead off kill, and now the Soniqs are in a very similar situation to what we saw XSET in on their top floor defenses. And oh no, I think that we're actually going to end up lagging out here. Everybody's moving in place, and I do believe, that is, it's going to make it difficult either way you slice it. But we'll have to see as we are back into game now. So instead of theory crafting what could happen, well, we can tell you exactly what will. Obviously, both of these teams are going to have to do not exactly what their strategy was, but they will have to have the exact same operator lineups, which forces Spirit, it pigeonholes him back into playing Blitz. So he'll be back on this. They're still going to have the Reparo drones and everything else in between when it comes to that utility as well. So this should, for all intents and purposes, still be a very even round in between these two.
So, time to see if the Soniqs now are going to be able to fend off the Blitz play now that they're more well aware of it. And for Spirits here, he's got a bit of a tougher task in front of him. We'll need to make the same play work again while their opponents are fully aware of the potential outcome they could come to bear from it. Still going to need to set up, though, as Super will begin to commit himself to the inside of that security position. Yeti will be supporting from down below, and the rest of the team obviously waiting upstairs. The clear is going to come from a different part of the map this time, it looks like, though, at least initially, as Gomez swings his way in through construction. Spirits as well will be right behind him, supporting from a drone. Probably already has intel on the freezer player, so just going to try and hunt them down first before then trying to deal with Super up on top.
Oh, love what we're seeing downstairs right now. Spirits is going to be back on the Blitz like we were talking about before. He'll be working the basement with Gomez. Yeti, he's going to go for a pretty aggressive take, but I don't think that Yeti knows what is about to be express delivered to him downstairs. And it's a bullet to the brain as Gomez takes him down off the boost box. Super's going to catch a grenade, but it's not going to be all of his HP. And this is actually going to make things extremely difficult for him now. No longer has an ability to drop off as they can just hold the hatch down here. Not necessarily going to be the best strategy for XSET. They can more than likely just bully him into just taking out Super in the first place. So we'll have to see how they go about this. Spirits is going to start working his way to the door, and there's a frag grenade from underneath, so they will end up holding the hatch, but it's just going to be the further frag instead. And Spirits will set his sights on white stairs. He'll get rid of these barbed wire setup, so we'll begin to transcend up that, and now it'll be down to the Soniqs trying to use their sight setup against XSET. 2 Goyo canisters are going to go off immediately as XSET arrive on their shores, but it's definitely not going to delay long enough to try and stem the tide.
Cans and Grixer, as well as Rexen, the last three remaining here for the Sonics, patiently waiting for the execute to come in from XSET here, but once again, XSET need the confidence built up to be able to do that. They'll figure out the position of Rexen now by inserting that drone from Spirits directly into the back of Attic. Not going to be able to figure out, in fact, actually, Spirits might be able to see Kansan from his current POV as well, so could have gotten some intel onto him. Grixer's still going to be hidden, but however, now that he sees where Rexen is going, he can move the drone forward and get that additional intel. I don't imagine that there would be too much additional delay on the execute, aside from maybe getting a few of these Rotero drones out to force players back. They would have liked for that one to go down in front of Kansan to force him back into Attic, but they're not going to be gifted everything here. Still will have to potentially challenge against him as they go for the execute, but they're going to try something else to maybe draw him back. Opening up the Attic window, maybe lure his attention away from the big window play that XSET certainly wants to execute towards here.
Starting to have flashbacks from what we saw earlier, but no, Rexen, he chooses the wrong angle, and now XSET, they've fully dealt with the Sonic setup. It's a flawless round for them as they bounce back. You thought that the Sonics had a chance there just for a moment. Looked like it was building up to be a round just like we saw from XSET on their top floor defense when they were able to come back from a 3v5. But the angles, they do not work out for SQ, and XSET gather the lead yet again.
Despite the fact that we had the plan fully revealed as well in the previous attempt to play out that round, XSET are still able to make it work with some slight variations to the way that they execute upon the site. Excellently done. Now gives them control over the lead, 5-4, and only 2 rounds away from being able to close out on this matchup overall. But obviously we only have 3 rounds left inside of regulations. They need to be quick about this if they don't want to allow for a potential overtime to show up from the Sonics here.
All right, well, the Sonics are going to choose the kitchen cafeteria. IMO, probably the worst site out of the two when it comes over to meeting, but it's definitely doable. The biggest risk when it comes to this site is how you can affect the overall site from small tower. There's quite a bit of soft destruction over part of cafeteria, so if you get a plant down in there, there's a big chance that you're more than likely going to end up winning out that round, but obviously things can go awry for the offense in that kind of situation as well. But for the Sonics, they're going to be bringing a few traps when it comes to Kansan's POV, but past that, it's going to be a lot of firepower, some slowing potential coming out from Yeti, and as well as Rexen just trying to bamboozle a few people with his clones. Super's also going to have a zombie along for the ride, so we'll be able to see those Kiba barriers used yet again here. We'll have to see what effect they can have across the board. So we're about 30 seconds in here. We're getting to it. XSET out and onto said board. Begin droning things out from this armory side and seeing if anybody's playing around trophy. And, well, we know the answer to that as Rexen's patrolling the area.
Spirits and a few other members from XSET still keeping an eye on the outside for potential opportunities to peek back in. Maybe get a few opening bits of damage against the members from the Sonics. Not going to be able to find that so easily, though, so things will continue to kind of devolve here. As XSET still looks for their early bit of control to start clearing out the top floor setup here, primarily from the Sonics, and then they can begin worrying about what sits down below.
Well, dislodge part of the Sonic setup here upstairs and back them off of trophy, but they're still holding inside of dorms. XSET would really appreciate getting something like Attic or even games like what Gomez has right now. Oh, he just saw the ankle of the Frost player all the way at the back. White is reinforced, so he won't be able to transition through that single panel. So has to worry about some other things, though, is Grixer's going to be holding on to White, making a lot more sense as to why this is reinforced at the current moment. But what a frag grenade from Yogg. Fantastic read, and now Rexen! Oh my! 2 quick kills out of the MX4 Storm, and XSET, they've been stunted in round 10.
XSET, though, still looking to try and close this one out, despite the disadvantage that's now been thrusted in front of them. Kino, ready to potentially take the challenge by Kids, but he's got to be worried here. There's another player creeping up against him. However, they just made a fatal mistake and dropped through the hatch down below here to try and evacuate so much time. Reminder, this is not an upstairs hold, it's a downstairs play. So much time is being wasted. This is all for the alternate hold over on the Sonics here. XSET now loses their case. The good news is the player that killed the case here just fall back down to their floors. They should be able to get it back, but with that said, look at the 2 positions. The last players on XSET, they're both on the first floor, nowhere near the case's position. It looks like they might just try to execute and frag it out to be able to find a win through that avenue, but that's going to be difficult considering they've got a 2v4 set in front of them now. Oh, what a pop, though, from Diaz. Swings right into the very swing from the defense, knocks out Rexen, brings us down to a much more winnable 2v3. When Spirit's going to come into the fold, though, he's a little bit nervous about a swing coming out against him, and for good reason, because it ends up happening from Yeti's POV. He takes him down. Diaz is now left alone in the 1v1. 1v3. Another nice snipe from Diaz, and he could get a third too, but no, we denied there. The player will back up, and Kansan is finally able to shut this one down for SQ.
Huge from the Soniqs on that top floor hold, and that's going to force an XSET timeout after they get decimated for the opener there. They're able to get control of meeting, or rather trophy, as well as the
on the game once again as XSET tries to clear out the basement hold from the Soniqs one more time, and it would indeed potentially be the last time, as the Soniqs may not want to risk a second attempt here if it goes to 6-5, and they once again are unable to hold on to it.
Okay, so Soniqs, they're not going to be bringing the Azami downstairs this time. Instead, Yeti will be on the Warden. We have the Thunderbird for Grixer here. Love Thunderbird when it comes to a lot of different positions, but especially turtle setups, just because the Spear is such a good gun, but you also have the Kona stations to be able to heal yourself back up when you take the initial engagements. Run back, get back to full HP, and then go back at it again. I mean, the offense does it all the time with Finko. Why can't I? That's what I like to think. So we'll see if that works out for the Soniqs. Either way, really love the idea of bringing the Kona stations here. And also the extended hold that the Soniqs are going to have. It's going to force XSET to try and take some contested gunfights early on with some of the best from the Soniqs, including Rex. And he's gotten to hit his mark earlier with this MX4 Storm, and we'll see if he's good for it yet again.
Kona stations are going to have kind of mixed results depending on the playstyle here for XSET, and XSET are being quite aggressive though, so I'd say there's going to be a decent opportunity for the Soniqs to get some use out of these stations here, most notably for Kansan, of course, who was forced back, but Yeti now realizes just how far forward these players are, so this is going to be so awkward as Gomez is somehow able to negotiate both of them, only to get clipped by Rexon, still holding the top white stairs a second later, but that's all right, a 2-for-1 trade, even if it's the Finka, that's a W for XSET.
Nah, Gomez didn't get clipped. He clipped them, John. That's how that works. What a 2K out of Gomez. Oh my. All it needs is a Finka, and apparently Gomez is good for it. It'll take out two people on the complete opposite ends of the freezer hallway. Incredible stuff here. And now XSET so far ahead inside of this round, taking down Yeti as well as Kansan, but obviously the utility of Kansan will still stick around, so they'll have to deal with those Banshees at a later date, but at least some of a very serious blow dealt to Soniqs. Still have an opportunity here at the end of the day. Just depends on how these initial engagements go for the actual site. Super has to make such a grand stand here. Really like this fallback strategy from him as well. Plays around Boiler there for just a moment, but then gets back in behind his shield for elbow. It's going to let him hold on to construction for some time. Now, be paying attention to what Grixer's going to do here as well as Super. You got to be paying attention to this utility game. Super's got to delay some time here and force XSET to try and go for this plant where you hope Grixer can deliver with that Nitro Cell.
Grixer just waiting for his chance to impact here, but it's going to be quite a few seconds before he gets it. XSET themselves still building up their confidence to be able to swing into this, and Yaga so close to the contact here versus Rexon on the other side, and actually is going to end up swinging into it accidentally, not realizing that Yaga had already positioned himself so far forward. He gets the kill against him. Super tries to directly challenge, and to his credit, will succeed in picking up the frag on Diaz, but Yaga also trades him right back out. Grixer with a solid exchange. The Nitro is out, but unfortunately the impact won't be made twice this time. Won't be able to deal really any damage at all to either Kino or Spirit, so that plant is going down, but here comes a flank from Grixer, working over towards it. He's got the right read on the Spirits, but not enough damage to fully impact him down. Only to about 50% of the HP. Keep in mind how low Grixer himself is as well. He's got to play this oh so careful. That explains why he's not gung-ho about the fight, but regardless, wins out another 1v1 versus Spirits to take him down. Now it's just Kino versus Grixer. One target to go, and he has case control back. He'll surge forward, get the Kona station to help him out as well. Why not? They're sitting on the site after all, but no, not enough, as Kino closes out for XSET instead, and they take 1 out of 2 rounds needed to lock down this game.
You have to be feeling for the Soniqs there. Grixer does so much to try and claim that. Gets her appropriate time, and will be lunged back into this basement hold. Now, the interesting pick that John was talking about during the time that you guys were just staring at players instead of the actual lineup, Capcan's worked his way in, and this is going to be extremely helpful for the Soniqs because of the mid-floor clear that a lot of teams go for when it comes to their offensive side. And not only that, but some of the site setup as well, but those EE1Ds, or rather EDDs, gotta love those two names, right? EDDs back downstairs on things like the freezer door, or even like, you know, E-box and stuff like that, to where when they go for the execute, they're not exactly going to be looking about where their ankles go, but for the potential heads of enemies around the site, and they can lose their life because of that. So We'll see how it goes with the Soniqs, as that'll be part of the overall strategy that they will be running. Rexon's going to be back on this top floor here as well, as he'd been previously running around with Alibi, and XSET will be out on the board.
Reinforce the wall.
XSET indeed on the field here on the grid as they try to knock out the Soniqs players and solidify the 7-5 regulation victory. Give them a very well-needed 3 points to allow them to continue to maintain the #1 position here in the league right now. Away from that, though, gonna need to build up the confidence to do so. Soniqs do have a little bit more of an out-and-about setup this time, and that includes the Capcan player. Currently being picked up by Rexon here. He's going to end up dropping down on the second floor, and will be spotted out by at least one, if not two, different players on drones. And in fact, the entirety of the extended setup now going to fall away from Soniqs. They have a very kind of locked-in timer where it seems they're going to pull these players back, as I noticed it happening very similarly on the last basement defense too. Right around that 2-minute, 15-second mark, I think is when they call for players to move back, and there is very little variation in the strategy from that, it seems.
Yes, indeed. They want to allow the XSET roster to clear out this mid-floor, maybe get some damage off with these cap cans. Just depends on where the EDDs are, but for XSET's sake, it's been fairly easy so far. Nothing really in their way any longer, so they'll be able to clear out this mid-floor and begin working on these hatches momentarily. For Soniqs, it's all a waiting game now, as XSET does indeed have quite a bit to get done before they actually try and aggress down low. Able to get at least the main hatch awaiting meeting as well here, so continue to hold on to the staircases. Want to make sure none of these Sonic members try and go for something a little squirrely that could catch them off guard.
Hatches are open. Kino ready to move down, but the rest of XSET will need to get into position first. To do that, it'll take some time to establish said position. Super now will move himself from behind the pillar over towards the construction doorway. Droning from Diaz is actually not going to be able to spot him out just yet, as it was trying to go down the side construction tunnel instead. More will move in, though, and figure out that intel, giving the XSET players exactly what they need to be able to move in, but still, do they have the confidence, regardless, to get themselves into it, as there's a lot of aggression standing in the way of them here from the Soniqs as they try to face off against construction.
Well, the scary thing about the situation for the Soniqs is that the XSET roster knows, relatively speaking, where this setup's going to be. Frag grenades in here for the shield, as well as the pre-fire out, because again, they know the setup. They know Super's going to be around this space. They're going to continue to propel themselves forward here as Yaga gets a big pick, but so will Super and Rexon, as they're actually going to pull ahead. The M590 doesn't pay off as he swings for tower stairs, though. XSET been able to at least equalize here at the current moment. With 20 seconds remaining, they have to continue to push themselves forward.
Spirits ready to take the challenge, but Yeti just a tad more ready to take it as he knocks out Spirits, leaving only Diaz, and really just Diaz, in this fight now. As Yeti is going to fall, but Grixer also cuts off Diaz before he can go any further into this clutch. The Soniqs enable overtime, and we get 3 more rounds on the board to find our winner.
A huge difference in that round for the Soniqs is they're able to slow down XSET and make it to where their opening engagement doesn't go off without a hitch. There's a lot of obstacles in the way, and the Soniqs deliver in those obstacles, making it to where XSET can't try and progress even past Pillar. Yeti making a grandstand inside a freezer hallway had a really big piece to do with this, but you can mention a bunch of different Soniqs names, even Super's there, as he holds down Boiler and is able to take out the player trying to move in from construction. Just so much solid play from the Soniqs, and they've pushed themselves into overtime, and not only that, but they have the defensive side as well, so they get to reinsert themselves into the basement and see if they can go for 2 in a row.
XSET with a chance to try and change up their own fate, of course, as they will get the rerun onto that same site, but as Stokes had just mentioned, it's just as much of an opportunity for them as it is for the Soniqs here, considering the way that they were able to close that one down. Not going to see any changes in the operator lineup because of that as well. Didn't really get much use out of the EDDs, so still a chance that surprises a few players from XSET on and upcoming around. Just need to position them a little bit more better this time to get them in the way of the play from our attackers here, as they too will bring a very similar flair in terms of their operator lineup, thinking that they fell apart just due to strategy rather than the formula they tried to bring to bear here.
I definitely have to agree with that. I think that, Soniqs have been able to find their mark downstairs, and it's really this, initial hold to transition back down low, give XSET some time to work open all these hatches and stuff like that, and then try and shut them down on their initial entry into the basement. This is something that the basement side is extremely good at as well, because there's not that many ways to actually get into that portion of the map. You have a pretty limited number. You got, a couple of stairwells, a couple hatches, and construction. That's it. So pretty easy for the defense to cover overall, especially if they have some info game going like bulletproofs or things along those lines. And this is exactly what the Sonics have. They're going to be holding on to a couple of these stairwells as well as Rexon will back off and again dropping down Freezer Hatch. He's going to pre-fire just like he did last time, but XSET will shoot right back. We'll end up tagging him up, but for Yaga's sake, he's going to eat a few rounds and get some more HP as well.
Soniqs once again playing heavily into their basement setup here, not wanting to risk a challenge, and a midpoint of this round that could give over a much easier execute to the XSET camp if they're able to win out that engagement and bring things down to a 5v4 or something worse than that. Intel is going to be the name of the game for XSET over these next 30 to 40 seconds here as they need to pop open access towards the basement, of course, and figure out in what ways have the Soniqs tried to set things up a bit more trickily this time to try and negotiate a second consecutive basement win to also give them the lead, of course. XSET now with those hatches open can begin to get a clearer idea of what Super and some of the others near Pillar are going to be trying to negotiate towards, as that will once again be the main objective from XSET. They're not going to try to change things up and go for a laundry or freezer take this time or something similar to that.
No tricks out of the Soniqs. Only firepower awaits XSET. As they're trying to work their way into this basement, positioning around tower stairs for Supers. He'll start smoking things off. He'll get rid of the drone here that has transitioned its way in as well. Begins creeping up the stairwell, but you can see Spirits is forced back due to the sound of the barbed wire. Does not want to try and eat a full shotgun to the face. It's a frag grenade or puller in towards Super's location, but he'll be able to sneak back into Harry Potter and stay alive instead. XSET, they haven't went for things just yet, but as soon as I say that, the EE1D will go off, and they're going to push themselves in. Super delivers, though, on two different fronts. He'll take down two members, and Kanzel add to the body pile. So be able to take down Diaz. Super for 3 in that round. Yeti to wrap things up with a bow in a beautiful Soniqs round. That's what you want out of your tower stairs player. If they're able to transition back and forth in between those two hot zones, the tower stairs as well as construction, and deliver on both ends, it's going to make it so very difficult for the offense to try and transition and to even start on the execution. They didn't even have to worry about the elbow player up until the last couple of bodies. Super had it all handled on his own.
So the Soniqs having almost too easy of a time shutting down the defense for themselves here after they pretty much rerun the same exact setup to the same result here. Obviously even more so sided in their favor as the Soniqs take control of the lead again now. It's 7-6. One round is all they need to lock in the victory here versus XSET, but it is finally going to see us changing sides as well, with XSET now giving us another defensive round here on the basement, but obviously with them on the defense itself, so a little bit of a change up in that regard. Still bringing the same setup that we saw from them last time they played this inside of regulation. The actual site setup, though, in terms of the walls that'll be taken down and or reinforced, is going to be just a tad different. It looks like XSET wants to play pretty heftily around their zombie player Gomez.
Could be pretty interesting how this works out. Gomez is going to start all the way over in small tower, just looking for some drones and pre-firing doors and things along those lines. But he hasn't found anything just yet. The remaining members of XSET, for the most part, are over towards Freezer Stairs and Z Hallway here, as Yaga's trying to help Gomez out for some time. But when you know it, the only member of the Soniqs here on the west side is actually Yeti. Everybody else over on the east end. And you can see XSET are like, oh, they're not really trying to push into this just yet. Okay, I guess we're going to have to slowly work our way back. Wait, where are they actually coming from? Is he coming from Z behind me? I mean, there's just so many different problems that XSET have to deal with, you know, this situation because the Soniqs have went about this in a much different way than they have previously, including Kanzen working his way in on this top floor.
So able to strike first from up here, potentially, as there's not going to be any setup at all from XSET to counter this. The closest thing to it that they would have is Spirits over by the back stairs, but attic access is going to be a bit tricky for him to try and play into, so no real way to stop the clear that's already worked its way in from the Soniqs up there. They'll be moving forward swimmingly, and it looks like XSET actually gives up most of their extended positioning as they pull all these players back down into the basement to wait out the remaining time.
Well, Soniqs have done a bang-up job of being able to clean out most of the building and giving themselves solid ground to work off of. And he'll start working his way in towards kitchen. Really not too much for Yeti to do besides connecting some of these things like meeting, like what he's doing right now, and things along those lines. He's looking to use his frag grenades later on once these hatches are open and stuff like that. Soft breach isn't exactly the greatest when it comes to this basement setup, unless it's range soft breach where you can get rid of like deployable shields and stuff like that. So for the Soniqs, still looking for the opener that they need to actually transition into the basement and start applying pressure to the site setup. And it's going to come through the Rotero drones, as Kansan's already been able to hit 2 big marks. I believe a frag grenade going into Freezer as well will clean up that Kiba barrier. Kansan for 3 now, as he's already gotten rid of one of the deployable shields. He's not going to make a rotation here in the soft wall as well. Soniqs making so many openings that XSET are going to have to worry about. And just to remind you, this is potentially the last round if SQ can deliver.
Need to make that happen, though, and that's going to be the big issue as time starts to get lower. We've already seen them and XSET trip up in this area where they just waste out too much time trying to set up their attack and are not able to actually make it work when it finally comes time to shove it into the defensive setup, in this case of XSET here. Spirits will take some heavy damage, but Yeti will arguably take nearly as much here. Super makes the initial impact for the squad. Rexon to follow it up, and Super now to put the plant down, but Kino moves in to deny that before himself is taken out by Rexon. Problem is, though, the rest of the assaulting team did not make enough impact or push forward for enough map control. 10 seconds left, and Rexon, unfortunately, with really no choice, just going to try to throw the case down on the ground to force Spirits and Yaga out of positions. It'll work to get Yaga out, but it won't force a duel, so time will be running out here, and the initial round will go over towards XSET. The second round, excuse me, does go over towards XSET to tie it up at 7-7.
This has been so interesting so far between these two teams, especially when we've gotten to overtime, because Super has been putting on a highlight reel so far. Nice little entry kill there for him when it came to the laundry player. Almost dies to the mute, but is eventually able to actually start putting down the case. But that's when everything goes wrong, and it's mostly due to Azami. The setup on laundry makes it to where when Soniqs are actually holding on to that area, they can't see the rotation hole, and that allows Smoke to work their way in and take down Super as he's putting down that case. And with the case now being down, XSET can deliver when it comes to the actual frag department. They start challenging out Soniqs and winning out a lot of these different engagements. Soniqs don't know exactly where the XSET members are on site any longer, and they lose the plot after that case goes down. Not able to get it done in the 1v2 either, so unfortunate circumstances for them, but for XSET, it's definitely a breath of fresh air after they were down to potentially one round that could have been their demise.
Well, it's still going to be down to one round for them ultimately as it comes to this one, the 15th and final round of play, regardless of who ends up winning it. Either the Soniqs take this or XSET does. No other way around it, and it'll fall upon arguably one of the worst sites for XSET downstairs in the kitchen hold.
Well, my friend, you picked Soniqs, I picked XSET. It all comes down to this. It's practically a coin flip if you really want to look at it that way. Firm shake of hands, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. So, as we got the opener here, oh, I love what's going on this top floor. We're going to have Super out on an island. He'll be playing for his death there and hopefully to claim some others' lives, as he'll be on the top floor of Small Tower with some Kiba barriers in tow. He wants to hold on to these here and try and force XSET to clear him out. You can see some frost traps around the area as well, which could overly complicate things if XSET do want to try and hop in some of these windows. But as of right now, that is not where they have their eyes set. They have it set on this dorm's hold here that has Kansan and Rexon playing the top floor.
Gonna go fairly quiet here as XSET just tries to set up for their initial positioning. They'll find fairly easy access to the walk-in side of things, including Master. But now, as they try to move further forward than that, that's where Rexon is gonna try to get into the way of it. Already knocking out 2 bits of intel from the drones there. Those are the only 2 drones who've been taken out so far, so XSET still have plenty in excess. The big question now is, does Rexon want to stay here, potentially challenge for a pickup, or is he going to be falling back? Support is available, of course, but not forever here. A few players may end up falling back on the Sonic side of things, and that would leave Rexon very much alone on an island to try and play out the rest of this round here. And more importantly, try to delay for as long as possible. You can see Kansan with him at the moment, still continuing to maintain this presence, and XSET nowhere near certain of where to follow this through and try to move into the site from. They're going to be held back as nearly half the round has already been wasted just from this hold.
They got a frag grenade in to be able to start applying pressure to the dorm setup upstairs through attic, and that's kind of what we talked about the last time, because now Kino can actually help them with this setup. They got decimated by this top floor hold the last time around, and this time they've at least been able to get out of it on equal footing. Yes, Gomez will go down and they won't have the adrenal surges any longer, but at least they have presence upstairs and they can start breaking up the kitchen floor and start looking for some of these Soniqs players that they can apply even more pressure to. Yaga's going to continue this work here upstairs, starting to look inside of security, but the Soniqs members already hightailed it out.
Kino strikes next here now for XSET being able to take out Super. Brings the defense down to only 3, and it's shrinking from there. 2 of these top downs. XSET are using them so potently, and the Soniqs just don't seem to have a way to counter it here. You could see Rexon trying to swing up, but he's nearly lost his own life in an attempt to do that. That would leave Yeti all on his lonesome on the Echo as well. He needs to try and find a way to use this utility, but he can't even find safe positioning. Diaz knocks him out. Spirits finally closes out against Rexon, and that's going to be XSET taking control of this matchup all the way to the bitter end of overtime, even is how far this needed to go, but XSET eventually takes control. 8-7 is the final score. They'll be taking home 2 points for their victory. Soniqs won't be walking home empty-handed either. They'll still